And I wish we had like some Jaws music to play right now, but the largest male great white shark to be tagged in the Atlantic by the research group Ocearch has reemerged in the waters off the coast of southern New Jersey now. So Ocearch founder Chris Fischer is here with me now to talk a little bit more about what's going on. Thank you so much for talking with me today.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So tell me who this is off the coast of New Jersey. Do you all have a name?
So this shark is named Contender. He's a mature male white shark. It's about 14 feet long and 1,700 pounds. So the largest mature male white shark that Ocearch is sampled, handled, tagged, and released of the 105 or more white sharks that we have sampled and tagged off the east coast of the United States and Atlantic Canada. So great to see him southbound for his winter migration.
Aha. Okay. All right. This is all a part of the plan here. Not kind of going awry.
That's right. You know, we see a real predictable pattern with these white sharks where they're spending their summers and fall off of New England and Atlantic Canada. And they're up there putting a lot of pressure on the seals, kind of bulking up for the oncoming winter. And what that does when they're eating seals and pushing them around is it prevents those seals from eating all of our fish. So they're really guarding our fish stocks and preventing those seal populations from wiping out our striped bass and our baits, our menhaden, our cod and lobster. So they're kind of the guardians of our fish up there, putting on weight in the summer and fall. And about this time of year, they go south to their primary winter habitat, which is primarily between Cape Hatteras, North Carolina, and Central Florida, Cape Canaveral, Florida, in that southeastern United States bight, which is where most of these sharks spend their winters moving around, feeding from reef to reef and fish event from fish event, with a pretty significant percentage of them wandering off into the Gulf of Mexico for a few months and then coming right back into that same zone.
Is that just for the great white, or are there other types of sharks or animals that you all are watching?
That is just for the great white shark.
Okay. So tell me what's maybe the most misunderstood thing about the great white shark?
Well, I think that thing that really they're the guardians of our fish stocks. Like if they're out there and they're thriving, they're conducting the orchestra of the ocean. They are the balance keepers. So much like a lion or a wolf, if they're not there, the system falls out of balance and then the aggregate amount of life plummets. So the most important thing is we need to see a lot of white sharks if we want to make sure our kids are going to see a lot of fish and have food security and be able to see an ocean teeming with life. The other thing is we've all been swimming with them all of our lives and nothing's changed. We just know now. When we started our work and tagged the first sharks off Cape Cod in 2012, no one knew where the white sharks were going to go. Turns out a fair percentage of them are very coastal. And so we've all been swimming with white sharks all of our lives. Nothing's changed. We just know now.
What is it like to tag a great white shark?
Tagging a great white shark is, I think, an experience that most people, it would surprise them what it feels like. It's not a big adrenaline rush. It's not an exciting, fun thing like when you're catching a big fish with your friends.
Yeah.
There's a lot at stake. We're trying to understand the lives of these white sharks so we can bring them back to make sure that our kids can eat food. So you feel the stakes when you're handling a big animal like that, and the whole world's watching. So at first when they come in and pick up a bait, they'll come in and pick up a piece of bait and they'll start swimming off with our gear, which is just a bait that goes to line with buoys on it. And then when they walk off with the bait, we'll come in, and they don't walk off like you see in the movies where they're like, the buoys are raging through the water. I mean, that happens, 1 out of every 7 times. Most of the time they just start moving away real slow. And then our fishing team is led by the most gifted waterman I've ever been around. His name is Captain Brett McBride. He's been with me for almost 30 years now.
Wow.
And he and his team will cruise up to those buoys and they'll pick them up and almost not want the shark to know they're there. So it's very gentle, it's very quiet, it's very stealthy. And then they'll give a little tug on the animal's mouth to kind of get it swimming toward the ship. And when they get it swimming toward the ship, then they'll try to get in front of it and kind of walk the shark toward the ship, more like you walk a dog on a leash. It's much more like teaching a dog how to heel than catching a fish when you handle these animals. Once we get back to the ship, the guys will spin that little boat real quick, put a bunch of buoys, by the face of the animal and then spin around and tow it around the side of our ship, the Ocearch, which has a lift that goes off the starboard side of the ship. And they'll swing that shark into that lift or over the top of it, and we'll pick it right up out of the water. And then once we do that, we put a towel over its eyes, we put water in its mouth, and we'll go about conducting 25 research projects in about 15 minutes. And that time in the cradle, this is the only place in the world where scientists have safe access standing next to a living large white shark like this. And so it's allowed them to pioneer all sorts of new types of research and really for the first time in history get to solving the full life history of these white sharks in our population off the East Coast, which is, where and when are they giving birth? Where's the nursery? How does that expand? What's the full migratory range? Where do they mate and gestate before they birth again? And those are the parts and pieces you need to make sure we keep bringing these animals back. Because in 2006, they were down to about 9% of their population, and we were seeing fish populations collapse where our sharks had been removed. And fortunately, now in America, our sharks are back, our fish are back, and we have more life off our coast now than we've seen in 50 or 60 years. We're really winning here.
Wow. What made you want to do this type of research? Like, what got you into this?
I wanted to make sure that our kids could eat food. And I was passionate about the ocean. The ocean was out of balance. The science community, when they come out of school, they're not given a lot of tools to answer difficult, bigger questions. They have to sometimes learn how to be a fundraiser, a scientist, and a fisherman, and a fundraiser. And that really prevents them from just focusing on learning what we need to do. So at Ocearch, what we did is we brought the world-class watermen together, guys like Captain Brett McBride and DJ Lettery, our fishing team, around the ship, which is the proper capacity with a lift. And we bring the scientists out for free, and we give them this access so they can take the science where it needs to go so that we can get the papers published to allow us to manage the system back to abundance and full of fish. And so what Ocearch is really we're servants of science communities around the world. Servants of the regions we operate in, because we try to just come in and give everyone a lift so they can get that data set and that information they need to plan and manage the future, and really just make sure that all our kids can go out and go swim and see an ocean full of fish, and also, go out and catch and eat a fish sandwich with their family. The people who use the ocean love it the most, and so we want to make sure that's there, and it's really a big food security issue. We talk about in the United States, we're thriving because we've had great management for the last 30 years across both federal and state levels. And we're at abundance levels. I mean, we are in the midst of the great return to abundance. And I don't even think people know it. We have more life now probably than we've seen in the ocean since the 60s. And we're continuing to trend up. And that's just a result of great science, great management, and time. And so we want to make sure we continue to do that. And then we also want to be able to deliver this playbook to the rest of the world so they don't have to try to figure out, what do we need to do to start turning things around? It's like, you make these 6 or 8 key moves and you'll see a whole new ocean in 15 years. And so we want to continue to prove that out. And then we want to share that message with the world because, every kid around the world deserves an opportunity to be able to go out and see life off of their beaches many generations from now, and we've proved it can be done now in the United States, and now we just need to make sure the rest of the world follows.
You mentioned things that are not like Hollywood. Does Hollywood make your job more difficult?
Not really. I mean, I think if you look back in time to the 70s, and when it came to sharks, that was a real difficult moment for the sharks when we came out of Jaws, and then the shark finning boom and for shark fin soup across Asia, up and in and through the 90s, like the 70s to the 90s. It was brutal on the sharks, and everybody was killing every shark and cutting out their jaws. And then we started to see our fish populations collapsing in the 80s and into the early 90s when we started to then protect our sharks. We figured out what was going on. A lot of great people came together and a lot of great management. So I would say back then, maybe, but now we're beyond Jaws. We've had 48 expeditions around the world. We now understand their lives. No one can leverage the fear of the unknown and make up a fictitious movie because we're like, white sharks don't do that. We know that. We know how they live. And so that's been great. And also, these younger generations weren't affected by Jaws the way people were that are, say, 45 to 75 right now.
You didn't have to age me. It's okay. I'm over
in
here
there
like,
too.
what
I'm
about
in
Jaws?
there.
Well, that was a long time ago, Anita. What about warming water? How does that affect you all's research?
The warming water, we see these white sharks in animals. The warming water, we see these white sharks in temperatures ranging from just above freezing all the way up to almost 90 degrees. So they have this wide range of temperatures that they have the ability to tolerate. And so, small movements in water temperature could have some slight effect on their prey, which might cause them to do anything. But one of the interesting things about pioneering the science and exploration and research is the fact that we're, for the first time ever, laying down the baseline of where these things go and what they're doing. And that will allow research projects of the future to see and answer questions like you've brought up, like, has the range and the movements of the white shark shifted in one direction or another? The fact of the matter is, right now, we're laying down the baseline of data. There is nothing for us to compare to from the past.
Is there anything at this point in time that still takes your breath away or still kind of does excite you?
I think, yeah, when you see these larger animals, which is rare when you get the really big ones, you can see all these markings and scars across their body. And this is like the story of their life. From injuries from mating and injuries from eating seals and other sharks, and their bodies are just like a canvas of scars and markings that's the story of their life. And it always makes you feel really small when you're beside one of these animals that's maybe 17 feet long and 3,500, 4,000 pounds, and you're looking at its body and you're like, wow, this thing's 70 years old or something. I'm looking at a 70-year-old story. And then you see some of these animals, you're like, wow, this is one of the ones that survived us back in the 70s and 60s, 80s, when we were trying to get them all. Because you catch an animal like that, it's 50, 60, 70 years old. Well, that means it was born back in the 50s or the 60s.
Yeah.
And it survived us. So it's one of the most clever, wary ones that had the ability to do that. And now we're counting on those genetics to have the babies that are the balance keepers and conductor of the future abundant ocean. So when you're around those big animals, you feel really small. One other thing that really excites me about this is, coming from the fishing space and oftentimes working with fishing groups on fishing regulation or preventing over harvesting of our bait or of game fish or other fish, is to be able to bring the science around the white shark into those discussions. Because, someone might be trying to say, hey, we shouldn't longline the Florida Straits because all of our tunas are spawning there, and swordfish and billfish and other things. And maybe they don't really get the love that they should get because they're kind of just a game fish. But when you overlay the white shark science and say, hey, wait a minute, we shouldn't longline this area, it's critical habitat for our white sharks, our balance keepers, and we can mix the message of our science and bring the kind of science community together with the fishing community where we have mutual interests, I think we can really get in a position where we can make sure regulations take and bring us all toward that big, abundant future we want with our kids. So, the policy and bringing people together from kind of more the science environmental side with the conservationist anglers, we have relationships in both sides, and just trying to get everybody on a common vision. It's just great grandchildren first. That excites me.
Oh my goodness. I've gone from wanting to sing Jaws music to Circle of Life. But, if people want to track with you all, can they do that online? Is there some type of way to follow along what you all are following?
Oh, yeah. Everybody can track all these sharks in real time and see it at the same time as our scientists. You can either go to ocearch.org online, or you can download the free global shark tracker, which is the Ocearch app. And then you'll see where these sharks are at the same time as the scientists. And then if you follow all the social handles across all the platforms for Ocearch, you'll hear all the science that goes along with the tracking, and we have educational curriculums associated with the tracking, so you can really dive into a deep rabbit hole, especially if you go to the Ocearch YouTube channel. There's thousands of shark videos there.
Thank you so much for your passion behind what you do, for taking us into it a bit. And I'm sure you probably have people that like love delving into all of that and going on you all's page and trying to kind of become your co-pilots, your co-captains.
Yeah, we're all coming together to solve this puzzle together. People have interesting ideas that can lead us toward things. And when you really think about trying to make sure we all feel good about what we leave behind for our kids, for a purpose of that conversation. There's no scientist or fisherman or anyone else. There's just us. There's no public, there's just us, and like, what are we all going to do about it? And we're excited about bringing people together on a common vision that we can all feel good about at the end of our days.
Awesome stuff. Chris Fischer, thank you so much for what you do on a regular basis and for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And again, he is the founder of Ocearch. Really interesting what they're able to do and what they see up close and personal.